Hi guys, and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm trying to answer as many questions as I can about my drum kits. Now I get questions at gigs, via email and so on, at workshops, masterclasses about the drums that I've used through the years, the drum companies, why I used them and so on. So I'm just trying to compile all of those down through a conduit and come out with all the answers that I can to do with those questions about my drum kits. So going way back, my first drum kit was a Premier, I think it was a Resonator, and it was in odd sizes. It was like an 18-inch bass drum, 8, 12, 14, with a matching Premier 5-inch steel shell snare drum with a bead around the centre of the drum. And my father got it for me from Assembly Music in Bath, which was a great drum shop owned by the mighty Steve Gardner, who I've talked about a few times, and I'm sure I'll mention a few times today. And that was my first drum kit. And they were odd sizes, so maybe Dad got it at a good price because of the size difference between the top toms, 8 and 12. Very odd. But anyway, it was a lovely drum kit, and there might even be a picture up at this moment as I'm talking about it, or you may just have seen it. And I worshipped that kit, and it was in silver, and it was just great, and it was cymballless for quite a while. I think maybe for my birthday the year after I got some cymbals, and then I just accumulated loads of cymbals and random stands, and I would try and put anything together to make a cymbal stand like we all do, with coat hangers and broom handles and goodness knows what else, just to try and make a bigger drum kit. And and of course before that it was pots and pans, wasn't it, and chairs and deck chairs and stuff set up as a drum kit with cardboard boxes, and again I may well have a picture of that somewhere. But that was my first drum kit, and that lasted me till I was about 14 or 15, and then by then I'd got the Ludwig bug through Ian Pace, Ringo Starr, Buddy Rich, Joe Morello, and my dad as well. So one Christmas he came home with part exchanged my Resonator for I don't know if it was called a Big Beat or something, but anyway it was a 22, 12, 13, 16 with Ludwig 400 snare drum, and it was in the blue olive badge, and it was a great kit, and it was in a mahogany wood stain finish, and I loved it. And I tried to collect all the Ludwig stands I could, and I was looking in the Modern Drummer and Rhythm magazines at my favourite drummers and their Ludwig setup, and they had Atlas or Hercules stands, and I was like, oh, I didn't want the sort of Premier ones that I had anymore, or some cheaper Sonor ones that I'd got that were sort of second hand from Steve's drum shop, because all the way through this time I'm accumulating cheaper stands and bits and bobs from Steve's shop. I'm saving some pocket money, mowing the lawn and doing that kind of thing. But that kit was great, and like the Premier before it, I wish I could have kept them. I always get really envious of when you see video clips of drummers in their garages and they've got all the kits from when they were kids right the way through. But I was never fortunate, in a financial position to do that, unfortunately. But there you go. I actually did bump into my Premier Resonator kit when I was working at Assembly Music, because I started to work there on a YTS scheme, and it came back in one time as a part exchange for something else, and it was sticking around for a while, but it didn't last long, and then it was out the door again. But at that point I wish I could have bought it. That would have been a great idea, wouldn't it? But I never did see the Ludwig mahogany kit again. That went into Assembly Music when I part exchanged it for a Sonor kit, which started my tenure with Sonor. I went to the factory and saw how they made the kits, and they were brilliant at the factory, and it was my first trip to Europe, actually, out of the UK. And it was just brilliant. I was drinking and getting up to all sorts of nonsense. Lots of stories that I can't tell here. It was just crazy. Good times. Anyway, when I came back, Steve said it's about time you owned a Sonor kit, because one, you're doing more gigging, and also, if you're a bastion for the company, which you are, maybe you should have a Sonor kit. So I selected a Sonor Lite, and For those who don't know, it was a Scandinavian silver birch shell, and those, along with the Yamaha 9000s, were the studio kits for the 80s and 90s. People loved them. I think locally, Peter Gabriel had one down at Real World, and I think it might still be there. Anyway, I had 20-inch bass drum, 8, 10, 12, and 14, 15 hanging, and a 14 by 7 and a bit snare drum. So I got to play possibly some of the finest drums in the world, including the Sonor Signature, the Highlight, and the D-Light, and they were great. And then a bit later on I had a Sonor D-Light, and at that point I was teaching privately and also teaching in schools. You know, and through that time I was working with Hugh Cornwell, who'd left the Stranglers. I was working with Coty Mundi, who'd left Kick on the Coconuts, and I was touring with him and doing sessions with various people. I did sessions in a local studio called Riverside, which actually then was called Kosan, and I did a session there with Herbie Flowers once. And yeah, I was starting to get out and about, and I was in my early 20s, and I was still playing locally, but with Hugh Cornwell and stuff, I was out and about around Europe and getting seen. And I was just enjoying playing Sonor drums. They were just great, you know, seen as the Rolls Royce of the drum world. But then I started a bit later working with, obviously, Susie Sue in 2006. And before then, I'd been out and about touring, and sometimes had difficulty getting Sonor kits in various territories wherever I went to. And that got a little bit harder when I was working with Susie, because the gigs were more high profile, and I didn't really know what I was going to get. Moving on to about 2012, something like that, I decided it was time for a bit of a change, and I went over to the Drum Channel over in California with Don Lombardi, and I was still a Sonor guy at that point, and I was doing an hour show, and I was being interviewed by Kurt Visquera, who's a lovely guy and a great drummer, and this hour show would be a chat with me, and I'd do some playing and play along to some Susie songs and some free solos, and they'd ask me questions about my life, and it was great, you know, and it's online somewhere, I don't know where. And I also did some lessons as well, and I was actually there for about 4 days. And Don Lombardi was an angel, you know. He took me out every night, me and my girlfriend at the time. They'd take us out for meals, and we would chat endlessly about Buddy Rich and drumming and traditional grip and the difference between UK and American drummers. He was just a real angel. He was fantastic. And I had some issues with the drum kit, getting the drum kit there again. So by the end of the our meet at the Drum Channel, like on the 4th day, I asked if it was possible to become part of the DW roster, because the Drum Channel studio is right next door to where they make the drums, DW drums. And he said, look, it'd be silly if I didn't take you on a tour. So I went around the factory, and he was interacting with all the people in there, and it was just a really nice vibe, a nice family sort of feel. And I got to meet Terry Bozzio's son, and he took us out for a meal one night, and we were hanging out. And one day he said, look, just go down to Candyland, which is, you know, the place you see where all the DW kits are set up, and Neil Peart's kit and Mitch Mitchell's, and, you know, and stuff like that. It's like it's a museum stroke, you know, showroom. And he locked me in there for a couple of hours, and my girlfriend went off and took the hire car, and she went shopping. And I went around the kits and found out that the one I liked the most was the Collectors. That was the one that spoke to me the most. Though obviously all the ranges were fantastic. But that's the one that really spoke. So I went back to see Don and said, look, I like the Collectors. And he said, well, that, you know, considering you've got an SQ2, I can see why, in Maple, I can see why you would find that appealing. And we signed up some papers, and 6 months later I had a DW kit in all the sizes I wanted, which was 18-inch bass drum, 22-inch bass drum, 8, 10, 12, 13 hanging, 14, 16, 18 floor toms, plus a 14 by 7 and a bit snare, and a 13 by 5 snare, all in broken glass sparkle. And the reason I picked broken glass sparkle was because I was doing some sessions when I was deciding about the colour, when I was looking at the swatches and stuff. I was working at Real World and Riverside Studio. We were working 2 studios with the 80s band Simple Minds. And we were working on a song called Broken Glass Park, which actually came out as a single. And in the end, it was kind of like that made the decision for me. I went home and spoke to my girlfriend at the time and said, look, this is like a give. It's a gift. This is given to me. I have to use it, right? You know, if the song was called Rose Petal something or other, I would have gone for something which was rose coloured. You know, who knows? But that's what happened. And I've been with DW ever since. And the first gig was at the Royal Festival Hall, and I got a 4-page spread in the UK drum magazine Rhythm as well at that time. And that was my crossover period. So that was the first time that people had seen me using a different kit other than Sonor. And I think Sonor, I've written it down, I think I was at Sonor from 1989 to 2012, 2011, something like that. So it was a long time. So when that article came out, as I say, I got the centrefold as well. Ooh. And DW are just, I've got to say, they've been an amazing company. You know, the artist relation guy here in the UK, Dave Phillips, is just fantastic. I just ring him up or email him with a query, and no matter where he is or what he's doing, he will get back to me. And, you know, when I look at the roster, I know there's some huge names on that roster, and I'm not stupid, I know my place. You know, I'm a B endorser, so I'm very proud of that. There's like A, B and C. And Dave treats me like an A endorser all of the time. It's fantastic. So wherever I'm going and whatever my request is or whatever, Dave jumps on it straight away. And over in California, again, they're just wonderful. I can speak to Don whenever. You know, we email quite frequently about drums. And just what I'm up to and checking in on the families and stuff, and it's just great to have that. You know, he's the head honcho. John Good, I don't know. I've met once, I think. I don't know him much at all, which is a shame. But Don is just, you know, for his position in the company and how he treats me, and you know, what can I say? It's just fantastic. Honoured to be part of the roster. And there's Garrison as well. Any requests I've got on equipment, Garrison is there. And Jules as well, I've got to say, she's been brilliant. When we did the lockdown, we were doing those DW listening parties, whatever they were called, block parties. I can't think what we called them. But they were like listening parties for like an hour or however long you wanted, and you could pick like 10 tracks. I think I did 2 or 3 shows in the end. I loved it. And she's always incredibly supportive of all my clinics and workshops. And you know, that's what you need in a company. So when people say to me, why DW? Well, this is why. You know, they treat you like a really important member of their family, and you are important to them. And the drums themselves, I know that whenever I show up at a clinic, a masterclass, a recording session or a gig, I just know they're going to perform. And I know people say, oh, well, DW, you know, they're brilliant and they're classic kits, but you know, I kind of like those little custom bespoke drum companies. You know, they make something a little bit different, and I get that too. You know, but my point is always, you know, if I'm out on the road, whether, you know, with a touring party with roadies and everything, or just, you know, if it's a smaller affair with just me and a bunch of guys in a splitter bus, if I lose a tension rod or some excuse me, or something happens to the drum kit, I want to make sure that I can get replacements and spares pretty quick, and DW I know can do that. And you know, touch wood, I've never had to worry about that. But I just know that some of the smaller companies, when I've, you know, spoken to them at trade shows, they're like, we can't guarantee that because we haven't got people out in Europe, we haven't got people out in the States. And as much as I love those products and I love to play them and stuff, you know, when I'm out on the road, I need something that I can get replacements for immediately. And that when I sit on the kit, no matter whether I'm playing in front of like 15,000 or 15, I just know it's going to perform, and that's all that I want. And some of those situations are quite high powered in the studio, and people are asking you to get various sounds from your drums, and in a live situation, if you've got issues with a tom and the roadie can't quite fix it, it's like, listen man, I need your help and all that. I've never had that with DW. I've never had any issues at all. As I say, and as a pro player, that's all I want. I want equipment that's always there, looks good, sounds good, that people turn around and say, great sounding kit, man. Without, could you possibly change that? Or, we're missing one of these, could you get one? Not for 3 weeks. Oh, right, okay. So this is why I use a company like DW. As I say, they've always been there for me, and they will continue to be there, and I will always use them, and I will always be a bastion of their product. So I hope that answers some of the questions of why I went to DW, and why I'm still there, and also about some of the other drums that I've used. And of course I've got like a vintage kit over there, the Ludwig late 60s super classic in white marine pearl, which I've done one of these little chats on. That's somewhere else. If you go surfing around my channel, you'll find it. I've owned a Rogers before now that I wish I still had. I wish I still had that kit. Was it called a Holiday? Something like that. It was two 12-inch toms, 20-inch bass drum, 14-inch floor tom, and a matching 5-inch snare in champagne sparkle, and it was gorgeous. Obviously I've got my vintage snare, so there are bits and bobs that I swap in and out when I need to, but that's basically the situation. And I would suggest to anybody who are looking to get endorsements, because this is another question I get, try and start relationships with the stick company or the cymbal company or the head company or the drum company as soon as you can. Use social media, hashtag, and tag everybody. Tag all those companies. I hear people say, oh, they don't want to see me gigging and just tagging Zildjian. Do it. Because, if you keep going and land a great gig, somebody somewhere would have sussed your name out if it keeps coming in up enough. And then eventually you can contact them and say, hey, look, I've been using your product for a long time, and you can tell because I've got all this social media with you tagged in it for the last 100 years. I'd like to go to your company. And the thing is, what I've found is that even though it's quite old-fashioned, companies like people that are going to stick with them. They don't like people that come in for 6 months, milk them dry, and then move on to the next drum company. And we all know there's people out there that do that. So if you can, try, if you're really happy with the company, start and make a relationship with them now. Get in early, because you won't regret it. Start that early, keep the name flying around, and contact them occasionally and say, look, I'm not expecting a free drum kit, but hey, I'm doing this stuff, and now we're touring, or now we're supporting somebody. Maybe we could start some dialogue about some help or some promotion or something. It's always worth doing that. Okay, so I hope that's answered some questions for you. If not, you know how to contact me either below, or you can email me, and I can always get back to you if you've got any further questions. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Keep drumming, keep being well, and I'll speak to you soon.